Number 4, do not hire account managers or industry experts. Wow. Well, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Account Management, a tactical guide to success. You got Fred Fuller here on the other side of the table, John Brown. John Brown, how are you, sir?
Fred, I am great.
Yeah?
Hey, can I say something before I get started? Before we get started? Before I get started. I get comments about this podcast that we have good chemistry together. Should that bother me? Is that good or bad?
Yeah, well, I'm trading up, you're trading down. I don't know. I mean, no,
yeah, no, that sounds right.
I think that's why I enjoy doing it in all seriousness, like this, the banter and the silliness. And, listen, man, we've talked about this. It's really good to hear that because people don't want two suits like voodoo economics, right? We talked about that, I think, in the first episode of like, that's not who we want to be. We want to do the thing and be able to have a conversation where people feel like they're talking to real people and getting real information, right? So it's good to hear
that's
that.
Right. That's right. Yeah. No suits. I can't even remember last time I put on a collared shirt, but that's another conversation.
Pants. Pants, man.
Or even pants. Yeah. What do we have today, my good friend?
Yeah. So today we have something just a little bit different. So we've talked about the book in the past. We have had guests in the past. And now, after begging for, 7 or 8 episodes, we actually have some feedback. We have an email from a listener who said, Hey, man, love the podcast, love your book. Here's what would help me. And I'm like, okay, man, I love this. I'm all ears. So this individual said, like the book, it's really good. I'm an independent business owner. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is figure out how to create and grow this team and instill some of these philosophies and disciplines into the team. How do I do that? And it really struck me as, I've inherited teams in the past. I've not honestly just sat in from day one and built a team or been hired with the intention of this needs to be 12 people in 2 years, go make it happen. So this was really interesting. And of course, I came straight to you with it and without fail, you've got a list of things and philosophies and so forth. So
that sounds like a comment, but all right, we'll let that one slide.
No. Without fail, meaning you're steady Eddie, man. You got the gun and the stuff and the, no?
Yeah. No, I'm teasing. Yes. No, great. It's a great question.
Right.
It's a great question. How do you build an account team? And I've done it a couple times, and it's it's not a joke. It's a decent amount of effort, and you do. I've made mistakes along the way, but generally, I think I'm batting. What?
You made
no, never mind. No. I've never made any mistakes.
Right. Reset.
I'm perfect. My mom tells me I'm perfect all the time. So that's what I believe. Okay. Now, we all make mistakes, and I've learned a few things, and I have 6 recommendations for building an account team, and a couple of them are fairly counterintuitive to I think what you'd assume. For if you have to do kind of a hiring exercise. But the good news is the counterintuitive recommendations open up the field quite a bit and make it a lot easier to actually go hire account team. So let me I was going to say,
let me jump in here. We'll rattle off the 6 and then we'll go through them and talk through them and think through them and all that good stuff. Right. So the first one is hire business owners.
Right.
Like hold that thought. Right. Yep. I know where my head went on that, but is a much bigger and more complex and makes a tremendous amount of sense. Think through the framework of what kind of account team you need. Number 2. Number 3, focused on talents around executing and relationship building. So like focus on the core elements needed to be successful in that job, right? That's what that sounds like to me. Number 4, do not hire account managers or industry experts.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. We're going to talk about that one. Yeah.
Okay. Breaking the mold there. Number 5, teach them how to approach the role. Do not assume. And then number 6, consider creating an account operations manager role. Yes. So there you are, 1 through 6. Mm-hmm. So, Mr. John Brown, starting back up top, hire business owners. What do you mean by that?
So this is the frame for the whole thing. Not, most people, when they go to hire account managers, I would think probably, they'll get on LinkedIn or whatever and start typing in the word account manager. That's actually not what you want. If you think about it, a little more unique to the account manager than necessarily the sales role or like a more operational role, like, a customer service kind of role or something like that. You actually need people who can think about the whole business, right? The nirvana on an account manager is that they act like a little mini business owner. And so let's say the client manager has 10 accounts. The nirvana is they actually kind of run it like a P&L. They actually know the profitability of the client and they adjust things like pricing and volume and all the kind of standard economic things. So they run it like a business and they grow the business as well, right? So you really are looking for people that you can pipeline into larger leadership roles within the organization. So first and foremost, when you go to do this, like think to yourself, I'm going to hire a business owner, right, for that true account management role. And then on number 6, we're going to talk about maybe you have some account managers today who are really great at kind of the servicing part or the operational part. Maybe they need to be in a little bit different role called account operations manager, which is like a little bit more of the junior partner role. But first and foremost, hire a business owner.
So number 1 is interesting on a number of levels. I think the first being that, you hired me, you employed me in my first account manager role, but I came out of a number of years of corporate finance experience.
Yes. We're going to talk about. Go ahead.
But when you say a business owner, like there was something within that experience that I had that put those pieces together for you. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. And that, somebody who is comfortable with numbers, analytics, knows what a balance sheet is or, an income statement, that can be a big plus for an account manager. I wouldn't characterize it as necessary for a really great account manager, but it can be a big plus.
And it's funny because I don't have my MBA, and I've always felt like that first sort of 10 years, I'll call it, out of school where I did that FP&A, P&L ownership work, that was my MBA. Like that taught me more about how to run a business than anything else, looking at unit economics, right?
Right.
The ownership of also coordinating all the different things. So even though I did not own the business as a guy that's finances and keeps the tally sheet, right? That was my job. But I had to watch the people that did own those P&Ls coordinate across all the areas of the business. Is marketing doing their thing so that I can drive more adoption? Is tech doing their thing so that my customer support calls go down? And you have to coordinate across all. So when you talk about being a business owner, I'm kind of like, right?
Exactly. Somebody who's willing to coordinate across your business. Right. That's a very, so if you think about it, they're almost the account manager facing internally as well, right? Like they're willing to work across your entire business to deliver the whole solution for the customer, right? So, again, for contrast, your, someone in your operations team may only do one discrete kind of function for your end customer. Somebody in sales may sell. Once the contract is signed, then it moves over to account management. But then after that day-to-day ownership, like it's a holistic job. And so you need to be able to be, as an account manager, at least familiar enough with other parts of the business. So here's a good example. So like, I don't know that I want the account manager to be a master marketer, but they need to know kind of probably something about it, to help market to your B2B customers, or if you're in a channel marketing situation where your customers actually have to kind of remarket the product in some sort of way, they need to be familiar enough with basic marketing concepts to help make that happen, right? So like, again, it's a business owner.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really helpful. And I see in hindsight, given my experience and where I am today, how helpful that is. So number 2 on the list is think through the framework of what kind of account team you need.
This kind of speaks to the first one a little bit. So imagine a 2x2 matrix, if you will. I would draw it for you, but it's a podcast, so that wouldn't make sense.
Next time.
Nothing.
No, next time. Next time. I was trying to.
So two axes. One would be kind of more client focused versus the other side of this axis being more your business focused. So more focused internally on your needs versus focused externally. And then another axis that is sustaining versus growing. So in other words, somebody who's really focused on keeping that client happy and keeping them on board with your business, or somebody who's maybe a little more aggressive and thinks about growing the client. So my recommendation would be that you make that little matrix and then start plotting where you think your current account managers are, if you already have some sort of pre-existing team, right? So, again, speaking to that point about business owners, ideally you kind of want people who are in the middle on both those axes. If you think about it like a cross, right? They're kind of in the middle on all those dimensions. It is probable that your current account team is not like that, and they're probably grouped, one way or another. So figure out where you are at today, and then what you need to go hire more of. If that makes sense. So you're never going to find, like, there are people who, are, good on all of these dimensions, but like the old saying, we try to hire employees and people keep showing up. So the reality is that the people that you have today are probably strong on somewhere on those axes. So figure out where your current team is and then plot where you'd like to go with it, right? So do you need to do anything specifically? No, you just need to have it in mind as you go through the interview process, which we're going to talk about, which is kind of number 3.
Yeah, and the reality is, unless you have an incredibly nuanced business, you want a little bit of everything probably in this grouping, right? You need some people that can just kind of maintain. You need the hard charger go-getter, the people that see the opportunity in the tea leaves and all. Yeah, that's but framing, I think that's your point, right? Like framing your mind around it. It's not, don't get out a piece of paper and go through, try to like Joe's over here and Steve's over here. I mean, maybe if that's helpful, but at the end of the day,
no, you could do that, but it's a subjective, kind of thing, but it's framing it. Yeah.
But put your head around it. Yeah. Okay. So focus, number 3. So that's 1 and 2. Number 3, focus on talents around executing and relationship building.
Yeah. And what I'm going to recommend for this one, that seems sort of obvious, like, okay, well, no doubt. Let me bring it down a level, which is what I recommend is a book called Strength Finder, which is based on research from Gallup and inputs from other kinds of intellectuals that, put together a frame for talents that are innate to people, and we all excel at certain talents and not others. And I'm using that word very specifically. So it's not skills like I'm good at Excel or, I'm a good public speaker. I'm talking about talents. So like literally pathways of thinking that are innate to you that other people have innate paths that are different. And if you buy that book and you read it, what will become clear is what are the talents that you need to look for that tend to make the most successful account management. So there's a bunch that you should look for in account managers, and what it'll also help you do is frame. There are a bunch that you probably want to avoid. So let me give you some sense of that. So talents that you want to look for, and start with talents, right? So we're going to talk about skills in a second. Skills can be taught. We'll talk about that. There are some skills that I think do help, but the talents that you need to look for are things like discipline, right? That's really important for account manager. Like the account manager gets told no. Okay, great. Wait a week. Come back. Ask again. That kind of persistence, which is what makes a great account manager.
Yeah, and I know we don't have time to go through every one of these and do a big.
No, but I'm gonna name them.
But yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. But what I do want to talk about that discipline for just 1 second.
Yeah.
Because where it is so critical is in the relationship building aspect. So this comes back. I mean, this just becomes a recurring theme, but it's that always assume the other side has the best intentions, right? Mm-hmm. Seek to understand before being understood.
Right.
Discipline in your emotional control.
That's right.
When a client calls you, and I have had this happen, right? They swear at you, they yell at you, and they are mad, and their irritation may or may not be well founded, but regardless, you have to have the discipline to absorb the moment and then be very calculated in your response and how you how you communicate it internally and externally and everything else, right? Like discipline without discipline. And you could say this about a lot of jobs, but in this one, it's just absolutely critical. Because if you lose that discipline for a moment and have an incredibly wrong, bad conversation with a client, that's hard to undo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. And it also speaks to things like doing account plans and regular goal setting and a bunch of other stuff that we talk about in the book. Like that's probably why I'm listed at the top a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's some other talents to really look for.
Yeah.
Arranging is really important. That should definitely be obvious. Like you have to deliver the service across your whole company to their company. That's a lot of arranging. Focus, responsibility, positivity. That speaks to the point you were making just a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
Relating, obviously, this is a relationship management job. Communication as well. There's probably a couple of others in there, but those are kind of the top ones that I look for. There are some that I also kind of want to avoid a little bit. I've seen people in an account management role where they're in the wrong role, and it's usually somebody who has a clear spike that makes them really useful in one of the other parts of the organization, but can be detrimental in that kind of account management relationship role. So, for example, things like competitiveness, focusing on the future, like that's really great. We need people like that in the organization. Is that a great account manager, a talent? No, not really. Not necessarily, I should say. Ideation, like somebody who's kind of coming up with an idea a minute. I don't know if that's a great account manager. Intellection. Strategic thinking, like I'm not trying to say these things like you don't want somebody who can see the future and is thinking about innovation for your business, but the kind of person that makes a really great account manager is probably not the kind of person who would really make a great strategist for your organization. Those are two different roles, right? You see what I'm saying by that?
Yeah.
So, or the person who makes an absolutely brilliant accountant. Right. May not necessarily be, may not necessarily be right for your organization for account management.
I've seen specifically competitiveness and intelligence come back to definitely be a negative attribute in this role.
Yeah.
Right. And
not
when
that intelligence is a bad, but super intelligence combined with competitiveness.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I'm talking about Uber. Yeah. I mean,
right.
and I've worked with a lot of really, really, really smart people. But if you told me right now that I have 3 minutes to name the top 5, I'd come up with a list of 5 and it'd probably be pretty close. Those 5 people may or may not have been or made good account managers, right? Because there's something about going beyond the ability to emotionally sort of connect, but even more importantly than that is understanding what the job and objective is. The job and objective of an account manager may or may not be to make sure that you are right, for lack of a better term, right? Like a client can say something, it could be wrong and you would be right. And you have to understand how important it is to make that point in that moment, because there's a lot of damage, right? You dip into the account that we talked about in a previous episode, right? You're dipping into that sort of savings account to pull that out to say, I'm right and you're wrong. And if that's critical to the success of the relationship, then it may be, right? And then there's a whole different podcast about how you would go about handling such a conversation. I've just seen super, super, super intelligent people that are also super, super competitive that want to sit with a client and argue with them about things.
And argue. Right. Yeah. Right. That's right. So again, the third one, use StrengthsFinder, identify the strengths that you think you need on the team. And it's really just listing those out. And here's the beauty of it. It's actually not terrifically hard to try to ascertain whether or not these strengths exist in the person. And it's very simple. You just do a behavioral interview and you can generally suss this out. So it sounds like this. You just, and this isn't original to me in any way, but the question is, tell me about a time where you had to use discipline to achieve a goal for a client. right? So you always start with tell me about a time where you had to name the talent you're looking for, and then to do X, whatever, and then you need to add an X of what an activity might be. And it's very simple. If the person can come up with an example from them personally, relatively recently, there's probably something there. That probably is something that they can do. If they struggle to come up with something, or really even worse, if they abstract it, then you know that talent is probably not there. So when I say abstract an answer that sounds like, oh, well, what you want to do when you use discipline is... Right. So that's an abstraction. So like, it's not me doing it, it's not John doing it. It's, in general, what you would want to do is X, or, so tell me about a time where you had to use your kind of innate positivity to turn around an angry client. So that'd be a good question. And the person says, well, one thing about being positive is... That's not a good answer.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
That's
Right. The better answer is, oh, well, that happened yesterday, blah, blah, blah. Right. If they come back with, well, that happened yesterday, like that, now it's a thing, right? So, that's how you screen for this.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that you taught me was the element of, but what did you do? So even in that scenario where tell me about a time where, and they go, well, there was this one time where we and blah, blah, they, and there's general and
that's an abstraction.
Hey, cool. That sounds like a really interesting experience. So what was your role?
Yeah. What did you do?
Right. Yeah, I was,
And the thing that they say that they did does not have to be earth shattering. Right. So like, my question about positivity is say, well, first thing I did is when I walked in the meeting, I started smiling at everybody heavily because like I'm trying to set the tone for a meeting. When we started, I made a couple jokes to kind of lighten the mood. And then I made sure that we had lunch. And I mean, it doesn't have to be like, some sort of answer from a Harvard Business School case study. What it does have to be is like, I did X, and then that tells you.
Or even if to your point, well, what was your role? Well, this was actually my senior executive and whatever, they ran point on this, but let me tell you what I learned.
Right.
Like that, it's a very interesting, very minute, but very interesting and telling thing. So, Okay.
So use StrengthsFinder, use behavioral interview questions. You probably can suss out what it is that you're looking for. One thing that does help, I will mention some skills that I look for in account managers. This isn't necessarily a screening thing because you can teach a lot of these. You can teach some of these things, I should say. Some of them are kind of skills and talents. So when we think about arranging, for example, what I'm really probing for there is kind of their level of organization. Like, are they, a natural organizer? Analytical skills are helpful. Like we mentioned before, if you really kind of want that business owner, attention to detail, which again is kind of that arranging skill a little bit. Resilience is another one that actually is probably a talent more than anything, but you can kind of people who are resilient, who will keep coming back and not give up no matter what. That's important. And then obviously EQ and listening skills, those are good as well. So just some other things to kind of look for, but anyway, focus on talents is my number 3. Let's talk about number 4, because that's the counterintuitive one.
Yeah, this is my favorite. I absolutely love this one. And I want to come back to the beginning there where we talked about when you hired me and so forth. I actually have a little story there.
Yeah, can you tell that story? I think that would feed in well.
Well, yeah. So number 4 is do not hire account managers or industry experts, right? Like that is so counter. So let me tell my story, and actually probably helps to solidify what you're saying here. When you hired me, a recruiter reached out to me. We didn't know each other. Our paths had never crossed. I didn't know who you were. You didn't know who I was. Out of the blue, I get a call from a recruiter, and the timing was wonderful because the company I was with was going through some M&A activity, and it just, that stuff comes with a lot of turbulence and so forth. And so, it was probably time for me to start exploring, the world. So this recruiter calls me and says, hey, I've got this opportunity for you, blah, blah, blah. And he tells me all about it. And we have 1 call, 2 calls, and he does his little vetting and so forth. And he's getting ready to schedule the interview with you. And I'm on the phone with him and I said, hey, man, look, I got to be really, really clear with you. I'm a finance guy. Like you've looked at my profile, right? You've looked at,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And in my head, like I'm a finance guy by sort of a trade, if you will. I've had many people throughout my finance time look at me and go, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing in finance? You're a, you're a frontline
You're good.
sales
You're good
dude,
with
right?
people, right?
Right. But so it baffled me that he was thinking, and this wasn't like, it was not like you were looking for somebody to come in and do the, years 1 through 5, like you needed some business acumen and expertise and so forth. And so anyway, to me, it was really, really odd. And this fits that perfectly. Like I'm not an account manager and you're looking to bring somebody in. So help me understand that.
Yeah. Let me, I was thinking about that when we were preparing for this, and I put together a short list of the roles that people have had prior to becoming account managers that I've worked with. FP&A, in your example, which is a great example. Social media coordinator, fleet asset manager, underwriter, recruiter, government project manager. Here's my favorite: concrete manufacturing plant manager, pricing manager, communications person, flight attendant. I mean, and I could keep going, right? So they're really good. And all the ones that I mentioned there are just truly the most excellent account managers. So where do they come from? They don't need to come from your industry, and they don't need to be previous account managers. Now, if you find somebody who was an account manager in your industry that you think is really great, I'm not going to tell you to not hire that person. That's not what I'm trying to say here. What I am trying to say is don't get locked into that, that telling the recruiter or, telling your HR team that that's what I'm looking for. I need an account manager from my industry. That's the absolute wrong thing to do. And because if you do what we talked about, number 1, number 2, and number 3, you're going to find really great account managers. And by opening up the field, you can hire the best from other fields, and everything else in terms of your, if you're in your industry, you can teach them all of that stuff. And if you make the role basically the business career growth role, like we're going to turn you into your own mini business person, you'll attract the right kind of talent that can come in and do the role that you want. And so, all of the great account managers that I've hired have come from every part of the business that have been operations roles, customer care, even development, implementations, project management. I've had some come right out of school. That's a little bit unusual, but like if somebody's just fits, then sometimes sales is where you can find some account managers. I would say, obviously, you don't want to take your best salesperson from sales and put them in account management. But there are times where you might have somebody that's maybe not quite as successful as you would hope they would be in the sales role, and then what you realize is they kind of have a little bit more holistic view of the business. They're a little bit more of a nurturer, relationship builder. And I've seen people where they were in sales and we moved them into account management, and where they weren't doing as well in sales, and they just thrived in account management, right? So sometimes they can come from there as well. And the reason that I say don't focus on industry expertise is what I've found is, and this is, we come from technology companies. It's particularly true of technology companies. I don't know if it's true universally, but like a lot of times if you have account management teams in other companies, it's not necessarily the first and foremost team that the executive team is focused on in the company. And so sometimes you wind up with people in those companies who are coasting a little bit, and they're maybe not the A players that you're looking for. And so you need to just believe, I will teach them my industry. Don't worry about trying to hire somebody from your industry, because it's getting focused on that kind of resume stuff versus talents is a dead end road.
Yeah. And the whole notion of an account manager, like a lifetime account manager, I think to your point, John, of, somebody that's been an account manager for 10, 12 years, and unless they are sort of running the show somewhere or moving up the ladder and progressing their organization, that probably doesn't fit the definition of an account manager that you are looking for. Right.
Possibly not. I would say there are people I've found who've been in that role for a very long amount of time who are just completely excellent and great. So I don't want to dismiss that, but you can, in certain companies where they're not paying attention to performance, like another company that you don't work at where they're not paying attention to performance. Yeah, you can get dead wood in there.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the 2x2 matrix, right, that you mentioned on number 2, which is thinking through the framework. And so there's that element of like, what do you need here? Like, if you need somebody that is actually more on that sort of account operations manager role plateau, like, maybe that background is there. I think the point is that it's never binary. It's never like, always hire account managers or never hire account managers. It's don't jump to the conclusion that because somebody's been an account manager for 2, 5, or 10 years, that they come with a skill set that you will need, because your skill set that you're looking for an account manager will be very different in regards to where your organization is and its growth phase and all that other stuff, right?
Right. It's possible that, yeah, exactly. Like if you hire from another company and you hire account manager, maybe all of their account managers on that 2x2 matrix are all heavily leaning towards, they're very client focused and they're very sustaining focused. Like they're
right.
all in that group,
right.
And you don't have anybody who is your business focused, like cares about your business results and making sure that you're growing and your profitability is growing. And maybe they're not growth focused, right? So that can't happen if you consciously say, well, I'm going to go pick off an account manager from my competitor. Like I can tell you that's the wrong way to start.
Right. Right. Yeah. Very interesting though. I do love that. It's so, it's provocative, right? Like,
listen, I'll tell you, I don't want to talk too much about the company that I'm in right now, but I will say, the account lead in that team has put together an exceptional account management team, and they have incredibly diverse backgrounds. And she figured that all out on her own. She didn't have a magical, book that explained it like
a dragon. Yeah, sure. Well, not, yeah.
No, but intuitively did absolutely the right thing. And that is, and that's what you want to do. And trust me, that does work. And it's a surprise to people. So, you and I have worked in a business before. We put together an account team that was relatively eclectic in terms of the types of people, and their backgrounds, where they came from. And I think that worked out nicely. And that's how I've always seen it kind of work out.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to break the mold when it comes to that. That's number 4. Do not hire account managers. Number 5, teach them how to approach the role. Do not assume.
That's right. So, if you've got a leader, an account manager leader on your team that kind of knows what they're doing, that's great. You can probably delegate to them, but depending on the size of your business, you need to be kind of involved in, I would say, set expectations for what you want out of your account management team. Here's the good news. Are you ready, Fred?
Yeah.
There's a book that tells you what the expectations should be.
Tell me more.
Well, it's a book called A Dragon Walks Into a Meeting by you and me.
By who? By you and me. That's a weird title. That's a super weird title.
It is a weird title.
Yeah. No, check that book out, man. It's awesome. A Dragon Walks Into a Meeting. John Brown.
Right. It actually outlines. I mean, the book is geared towards relatively new account managers, saying, "Hey, here's the things that you should do." But you just flip it and use it as, "Hey, here's the expectations that I have for my account managers," and teach to that, and you'll be fine. And then also, going along with that, and going along with number 4, you need to teach them your industry, and it takes some time in the role, but most people will pick it up in 6 months to a year. They'll, I've yet to find an industry that was so complicated that you can learn, some sort of way to navigate it. And if you have somebody who's great at that kind of relationship building, they're going to get to know your client base, and pretty quickly they're going to know just as much about the industry as you do, if not more, because they're out there in the field talking to clients every single day. So you don't have to worry about that part of it.
Well, you know what? Number one, when you say hire business owners, and we talked about what that means to have people that know how important it is to be able to impact and affect a broad swath of the organization, different verticals, different functional areas, and so forth, right? And so what you want in terms of like the specificity to your industry, a good hire is actually a really good generalist. Right. They're good at becoming, they're good generalists in that they have that great overview, but then they can go in and they can pick things up and they can get to the level of depth that they need quickly. And that's what you need. So that's why I don't need somebody that spent 20 years in X industry, but I need somebody that has shown me the ability to learn. And I need to know that you're smart enough that you're going to come in here in 6 months, you're going to be conversant and do all the things that I need you to do and so forth. So yeah, I always shy away from that sort of industry expertise. And I know there's certain industries that it's really important, and in certain roles within those industries where it's very important.
Yeah, and the other thing, I don't want to dismiss industry expertise. I want to make sure we're clear that we're not doing that. Like, I would actually suggest that this is not true of certain other roles in the organization, like maybe some senior executive roles and or sales roles, where you having a Rolodex actually is handy, I should say, right?
Yeah.
So, like, somebody who comes into your organization, like let's say you're I don't know, like somebody in Hollywood, having a pre-existing Rolodex actually is kind of necessary for certain senior level executive roles. In certain industry verticals, having a senior sales leader that actually knows a lot of people in the industry, a lot of value there, right? So I'm not dismissing industry expertise at all. I'm just saying for this kind of on the ground level account management role, it's probably not necessary.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So I want to be careful not to dismiss that, which can be a lot of goodness for your organization. So teach them how to approach the role. And then number 6, we're at the last one.
Yeah, that's right. Consider creating an account operations manager role.
Right. If the team is big enough, if your enterprise is large enough, you probably can support this. It kind of depends on how operationally intensive what you're doing is. But if you have account managers that, again, are, really good at that kind of sustaining and client side thing, and are really good at working with the operations team of your client, and really excel at that, and are not necessarily going to be the kind of people who are going to grow into doing things like, project management with their client. They're not going to grow into doing things like negotiating, kind of hardcore negotiations with clients, and or things like, setting pricing, setting SLAs, the kind of those general business activities that we talked about earlier. If you have somebody who's probably not necessarily going to grow into that, but they're really great working with the operators at the client, consider creating this kind of secondary role that I in the past have called it account operations manager. You can give it different titles, but the notion is basically, yes, you are an account manager working directly with the client, but it's a role that has a little bit more targeted audience than being that general business person. And so if you got somebody really great, and you don't want to lose them, but they're maybe not in that role for being that true business owner, you can create this role.
Yeah. So consider creating an account operations manager role. Kind of ties back into that 2x2 matrix just a little bit in regards to, understanding what role and sort of input you need, right? Like what do I need this role to be capable of? And not everything's got to be that full-fledged account manager, so to speak, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So very, very, very interesting. There's a lot of stuff in here that it's counterintuitive, and then when you talk through it, it all makes like perfect sense, right?
Yeah, it only took me like 20 years to figure all this out. So I wish I had known some of this in the beginning, but that's okay.
So you're welcome. Whoever's listening to this podcast, you just got 20 years of experience and a couple of bad jokes, all for free.
Wow,
right?
That's a bargain at any price.
You're welcome. All right. So that, folks, is how you build an account management team. Again, hire business owners. Think through the framework. Focus on talents around executing and relationship. Do not hire specifically account managers or for industry expertise. Teach them how to approach the role. Don't assume that they know. And consider creating an account operations manager role, a role that somebody can start in and grow into potentially a full-fledged account.
Right. That's I forgot to mention that. Right. That's that can be an on-ramp. Like maybe you hire somebody right out of college and they can go right into that, and then they on-ramp their way to the full account management role. Provides a career path. Lots of goodness there.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right, John. I think that gets it. I think that's another episode in the can.
Wow.
That's what they say in the biz.
What biz is that? Hollywood? Showbiz.
It's account management, a tactical guide to success. That's what we say in the biz. That's it.
God.
So, all right. I don't know. I'm trying to wrap this thing up. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Account Management, a tactical guide to success. For John Brown, this is Fred Fuller, and we'll see you next time.
Enjoying the podcast but want to go deeper into best practices for account management? Learn more from Fred and John in A Dragon Walks Into a Meeting, a tactical guide to client management, available at Amazon or wherever books are sold.